Hello, welcome to Songwriting Behind the Curtain. Hello, subscribers. Hello, fans. Hello, people who are listening or watching all around the world. I'm Luke. This is C28 Music.
Hello. My name is C28.
And we are going to be talking about, our podcast, and our podcast is Songwriting Behind the Curtain, and we are usually going to be talking about the songwriter's perspective on music and what the lyrics or the details, the facts about the artist, what it means to them, and hearing their thoughts on their music perspective. And one of my questions is, when comparing studio albums to books, chapters, book title, details, are they both connected with each other? That means, is it the same with a physical book to compare to a studio album? Do they both intertwine with each other? That's the question I want to ask with a lot of recording artists all around the world, including Tears for Fears, Feeder, Hanson, U2, McFly, Busted. I'm talking about everyone. I want to hear their thoughts. Like, what was it like recording Motion in the Ocean? Or what was it like recording Actung Baby? What was it like recording King of Fools by Delirious? What was it like recording Polythene by Feeder? And what was the recording process like? And what was the songwriting progress like?
That sounds like a very fun adventure.
And were they lead and backing vocals? What was the record label? Like, example for Echo, are they major? Are they independent record label? Like, for me, personally, Echo is an independent record label.
Sounds very interesting. I know you brought me on the show today to talk about some of the perspectives that I've had. So I'd love to answer that question for you.
Yeah.
So you said, are studio albums and their titles, the way that they're created, sort of linked with the same thematic elements as writers would have when they make books, like the literary world?
Yes.
For myself, I don't know if I fully follow that practice, but I definitely I like to incorporate the idea of story writing in creation of my music. So there's a song I released recently called Suffering, which is just a single, in fact has no vocals, has no vocal work, but it itself is a self-contained story about the battle with like hard times and carrying on. But I think there are many artists out there who definitely do that to an extreme manner. They'll write things thematically like a book, like very strictly, like, no, this is my saga I'm writing. Personally, when I write my songs, you may have seen a lot of my song titles are a little goofy. I have songs about artificially intelligent systems falling in love with humans and having existential crises and all sorts of nonsense. Or I have a song about someone losing keys. So some of my songs, they're like anthologies, I would say. They don't really connect to each other.
Right.
But as I progress as an artist, I'm definitely seeing more and more of my work become interconnected and wanting to tie stories together to convey something. Because at the end of the day, it is the same sort of idea, is you are telling a story to your audience, whether you're doing it through a book, whether you're doing it through music, whether you're doing it through anything. It's the same sort of deal. And music is a very special medium to be able to convey your thoughts to your audience.
Oh yeah, also Trey Cool from Green Day, he said book and movie both have their own magic, and I 1,000,000,000% agreed with him.
Yeah, they have their own places, like books and movies. They do.
Example, Harry Potter, he started in the balcony scene in Harry Potter in the Chamber of Secrets, but in the book he started in the kitchen.
Yes. So that's a good example of how the screenwriter might have a different direction on how they want to convey something. So say the screenwriter is like, well, okay, in the source material we have this, but film gives us this special opportunity to portray something that you couldn't do in just words. So we'll change it. We'll do something else. And the same could be true in any medium. If you make like a song for something from, say, a book, you could change up how that song sounds as opposed to how the book described it, because maybe there's something the book couldn't convey that you could convey in sound. So they all have their own areas that they shine in, and it's just for different senses.
Yeah. And for the B-sides, why the B-sides, like example Rhubarb, Rain, why did those songs, didn't ended up on, Polythene or Rubber Band from Yesterday Went Too Soon?
You're talking about like vinyls having B-side tracks?
Yeah, same with CDs.
Gotcha.
Yeah, same with CDs.
I think that's very interesting. I don't have a whole lot of experience, I'd say, with vinyl records. I'm familiar with that. I've heard rumors that the way they determine the A versus B sides is based on like popularity. So if they redo an album, they're like, hey, let's make a vinyl. The A side of that vinyl, if they're gonna do an A side, would be like, okay, these are songs that in the past did really well in this collection, and the B side is like less so. So I'm not sure why it may have been on one side or the other. You said, what was the name of that song again?
Rubber Band by Feeder, Space Age Hero, Rhubarb by Feeder, which is actually mixed and produced by Brian Spearber.
Interesting. Now, I'm not too familiar with those songs, to be honest. Myself, I'm more into the experimental electronic scene, so I know more artists like Look Mum No Computer, Rez, Death Pact, all those.
Yeah. But Feeder, they came out with the song High, and that song is all about marijuana.
Very interesting. Lots of songs about that.
And that one ended up in a movie called Can't Hardly Wait. Which had Jennifer Love Hewitt from Kids Incorporated back in 1998. And I remember personally when I was, looking up on these songs, I was like, I didn't know that, this song was popular here in the US, because Feeder been around since like the late 90s to early 2000s, and they also toured Ireland, they toured around the UK, they toured around the US, they toured around everywhere.
Staying busy they were.
And they were a independent rock band, and Grant was doing lead and background vocals, and he done it since when he was in Multi-Story. Like since the 80s.
Yeah, the long time songwriter, so definitely it helps to have experience. I know when I first started writing songs, it was a long, arduous journey of what the heck am I doing? Not knowing, okay, what direction do I need to take this? But certainly with years of experience like that, you gain the ability to more adequately convey your thoughts on a medium like say an album.
Yeah,
convey your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Like for me, when I listened to Polythene, I was on chapter 5, Radiation, and then it crossfades, or segue. That's what listeners would call it. Listeners would call it segue, because it would go from one song immediately to the next without interruption. Because if you would skip it, you would hear the fade out and the fade in coming in.
So these are like songs that
they would blend.
Do you have a fade, or they don't?
They would have a fade. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So just a regular fade.
So it's really it's blending into each other.
Gotcha. Yeah, I thought you were talking about something like
that's segue. Segue means join together.
Yes. Yeah, I'm familiar with there are artists like Haywire who'll do really fun things, or Rez in one of her albums, Nightmare on Rez Street, where the songs will transition seamlessly, where you don't need the fade. They just like there's a melody that gets continued in the next song, and it's like
that's right.
It's instant.
Yeah,
that's really cool. But it sounds like what you're talking about is songs that are designed so at the end you have very few elements, like maybe just a guitar, maybe a little bit of drums. That can fade out and fade in with another song, but they have to be in like the same key, I suppose. You couldn't do like a different key or different
Yeah.
BPM. It would have to be like the same stuff. So, and it'd be very interesting when you're making the album, because if you want to have a song that's slower, but you still want to do that throughout the entire album, you have to incorporate tempo changes within your song, and those can be tricky. Those can be tricky to figure out where to do it, how to do it. I know there's some artists who are insane. They'll do like a song that starts at 130 BPM and they'll slow it all the way down over the course of the entire song to like 80 BPM. And it sounds a little crazy because you'll be listening to it and then you're like, wait a minute, it wasn't always this slow. What happened? But yeah, that's definitely a very fun area to look at.
I remember Segway, aka Crossfade, like usually they would, like example Sanctify, you would hear a organ and then a electric guitar would just come in, and usually it happened during the mastering stage. It wouldn't happen in the producing stage. The mastering stage would just use the same levels.
Makes sense.
And
you'd have all your mixes
they would adjust it.
Okay.
And what they would do is like what Nathan Eswine told me is that that's why you would hear some songs end and sometimes begin at like when you skip it. But for me, I would listen to the whole entire studio album exactly a book, because back when I was a kid, I couldn't even read. And I was like mumbling, like just like in Lego Star Wars, I was just So what I would do is I would read lyrics and then I would listen to the lyrics and hear what they're saying.
That's very interesting. So you learned how to speak through music alone. It seems like, mainly music. Like mainly music is the thing that taught you how to speak, which is very interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting that you know that. Very few people, I think, are knowledgeable of how they learned how to speak. It's just like you hear sounds around you and you copy them. But there's something that's really interesting, that there's something special about music that was the thing that triggered your ability to speak.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I remember the first album, the first book that I listened to back when I was a kid that actually like I would be reading to is Newsboys Not Ashamed, and that has none other than my Facebook friend Dave Perkins.
Dave Perkins.
And he played electric guitar, because Newsboys they would have several electric guitar players, and some of these bands, like, they were signed to an independent record label called Star Song Communication. They've been around since the 90s. And the very first thing that I said was, "Oi boy, got a new gig. Sound your brain like a two-tie wig."
Is that some of the lyrics from the song?
Yep.
Gotcha.
And the first thing that I would hear is Dave Perkins' electric guitar that is in the song. And I remember my uncle, his name is Richard, and he would say, "Is that Dave? Is that Jody Davis playing the electric guitar in Dear Shame?" And I said, "No, that's Dave Perkins."
I hate to go off subject, but you definitely gained some. I've got some intrigue now as to when you were learning to speak. Having music as that primary way of understanding language is very interesting.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a movie I watched not too long ago, The Marvels, where they explore a world where they only communicate in song. And it's funny because that's very close to how you actually learn how to speak. Do you find that your mind works in that way? Do you ever like you're thinking and you think in song as opposed to just like language like this?
I'm more like for me, like personally, I still look at lyrics. I still read lyrics, and I find it more comfortable.
So you find that looking at lyrics for content is more it's easier to do than like reading say a book or a passage of something like a newspaper.
It's similar, yeah.
The fact that it's like
similar,
it's the design, like things are structured differently too. It's like they have their syllables are set so that you could it fits into a musical phrase. Oh, and additionally, the rhyming is very interesting. I wonder how that would play into when you're developing at a young age the ability to speak and thinking in a language in your head, how that affects things. I imagine that does something very profound that can give you some really interesting aspects for conveying information that just naturally come to you.
I noticed right away that when I was listening to Waffle House, I noticed where the details, the facts of the artists, like for Kevin Jonas, Nick Jonas, Joe Jonas, the details for the lyrics. Lyrics means details, which is the facts about the artist, the identification of them, as what we would say. I remember personally, when I was listening to that song, I remember in the chorus, no, don't get stressed, it's gonna figure it out. Deep conversations at the Waffle House. And I went, well, this song is about the actual Waffle House.
The conversations at the Waffle House, yeah.
And when I watched a music video, usually for a studio album, you would have these original characters. Mm-hmm. Example, in Foo Fighters' Breakout, in chapter 2, you would hear Breakout going through, and it's mastered by none other than Bob Ludwig, who's famous for the Newsboys albums.
Gotcha.
And for Foo Fighters albums. But I remember for Breakout by Foo Fighters, chapter 2, it's just 3 minutes and 19 seconds, 3 minutes and 20 seconds, and I remember just reading the actual words, then listening to it, and then I also remember watching the music video, and I noticed how the characters drastically changed. And I was like, I prefer the original the most, because I can see where the characters are originally designed that way.
Gotcha. Yeah, have more of a...
They're more storytelling based. Yeah.
Okay. I can see that.
And when I was listening to Learn to Fly, the album version is actually mixed by Andy Wallace, the same guy that done for Feeder's B-sides.
Gotcha.
Mostly Feeder's stuff. And he done the crossfade for Gimme Stitches.
I forget, he's a mixing and mastering engineer, is that right?
Yes, he's really a mixing engineer.
Mainly mixing.
For some of the songs, but mainly Bob Ludwig is the actual famous one.
Gotcha. I remember before this the show, you were showing me some of the songs. I could hear a clear difference of whether he was mixing or not. I was like, wait a minute, what happened to the quality? And I saw he was nowhere in the credits. So, okay,
he is, yeah.
Like not throwing shade to the other engineers, but just like, there's something special about the way that he did it. That was like, that's really nice. I like that. Yeah,
and I still look at the credits of it, and I remember getting it from COVID-19, like during the pandemic, like spring of 2020, and I remember just picking up that album, and man, it changed my life. And I remember just getting the Australia pressing and the Japan pressing, and it had Fraternity on chapter 12, and it's a B-side, and they only use it for import issues, which I don't get that why.
There's some sort of like regulation with it. It might be. I'm not sure if like lyrical content would have bans in certain countries, but I'm not sure what it would be.
But for my music perspective, I still believe it's an album re-recording. You know?
What do you mean by that?
Because when an artist goes into a recording studio with a multi-track tape source back in the day.
Quite a recent tape.
And they would write songs, and they would do, the actual ones, like they would have like, all right, how many songs? 156 or 120, and they would choose like 10 songs or 11 songs that are good. And they would choose like the others that are B-side. And I'm like, put Put it on the album. Come on. Put it on the special edition. Come on.
Yeah, I suppose
do something that's gonna make the fans happy.
I definitely understand that, because there's a series I used to do on YouTube that I want to continue doing again, called Song a Day, which is instead of just writing these tiny little motifs and having them go into the void of nothing,
right?
I share them with YouTube, even though the production quality is super low, even though it's not the best quality I could have made. I could have made better stuff, but I didn't. The whole point is it's showing
it might come back.
Just
Who
make
knows?
this thing. Yeah, it'd be cool to see artists embrace the idea of their just tiny songs getting released. I know Ed Sheeran has a very powerful bit of advice that I took on. I grasp onto tightly, basically saying, if you want to get good at music, you need to make terrible songs. Make as many terrible songs as you possibly can. Make all the bad songs, and eventually you're going to get one that's amazing. And then 2, and then 5, and then 10, and then more will come. And it takes those terrible songs that have bad quality, but still have really important, could be having great messages in them, to make something that's exceptional. And then once you've learned something, you can use that to help craft those songs in the past. But if you don't record them down, if you don't write them down, they're lost forever. So it's very important. Like you said,
that's right.
Don't lose them. Don't lose those songs. It's very nice to have those.
And Hawk Nelson, Letters to the President, actually shows a book cover in the actual pressing. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I asked David Clark, the electric guitar player, because normally I would be asking these band members, do they do, background vocals? Do they do background vocals in the studio, or do they do it live? And so he replied to me on Instagram, and he said, no, Jason Dunn, he did lead and background vocals for the studio, and David Clark did background for live. And I was like, dang, I'm surprised. Because normally at that time, bands were, so busy during those times and seasons, and usually, the lead and background vocalist, Jason Dunn, I was surprised because he was doing overdubbing.
It's definitely where I need to verse myself into more. I hate to cut the show short, but unfortunately we didn't schedule very long. I'd love to come back when we can schedule a longer session, but
hopefully a video will come soon.
Yeah, so many outro things
it will
we get to
be
do.
posted online, and it will be everywhere worldwide. It will be everywhere. Do not worry.
Well, it's been great being on the show. I appreciate being able to be here. I hope your podcast grows to be able to reach out to those people. That'd be very nice.
Woo!
Yeah.
And hopefully we will show some behind the scenes content as well on Instagram, Facebook, on my Facebook, on my Instagram. And it will be everywhere, worldwide. And hopefully we'll have a bigger studio. So you never know.
Remind the audience the name of the show again.
This is Songwriting Behind the Curtain.
Heck yeah.
And we're going to have tons of guests. I mean, you name it, from the late 90s to early 2000s. Heck, probably in the 80s.
That'd be cool to get them.
Or maybe in the 70s.
Well, it's been great being here. I appreciate the time. Take care. Bye.